The big meeting room buzzed with strange sounds. 47 different alien species sat around the huge circle, making their own kinds of noises. Some clicked like insects, others hummed like machines. A few made sounds like wind through metal pipes. But they all had one thing in common today. They were angry at the humans. Kim Tae stood at the small platform in the center. He was tall for a human, with gray hair and tired eyes. His blue uniform looked simple next to all the colorful alien clothes around him. He kept his hands behind his back and said nothing while the aliens talked about his people. The Vorthak, Chancellor, rose from her seat. She looked like a giant lizard with purple scales and 4 arms. Her voice was deep and scary when she spoke. "The humans have done too many bad things," she said. "They built new worlds without asking us first. They made too many warships. They taught their ways to young species who should learn from us instead." Park Dabin sat in the back row where humans were allowed to watch but not speak. She wore the gray uniform of Earth's space military. Her short black hair was neat, and her face showed no feelings. But inside she felt angry. These aliens talked about humans like they were children who had broken the rules. The Zephyrian speaker stood up next. His people looked like giant birds with silver feathers and 3 eyes. "Humans think they know better than species who have been traveling space for thousands of years," he said with a voice like breaking glass. "They ignore our wisdom and do what they want." One by one, the alien species voted. The big screen above showed the numbers. 45 voted to throw humans out of the Galactic Council. Only one species, the peaceful Milani, who looked like walking trees, chose not to vote at all. They felt sorry for humans, but were too scared to help them. Kim Tae watched the numbers change on the screen. His face stayed calm. He had been Earth's main speaker to the aliens for 10 years. He had seen this coming for months. The aliens were tired of humans getting involved in their problems. They wanted humans to go away and leave them alone. "Ambassador Kim Tae," the Vorthak Chancellor said. "Do you have anything to say before we announce the punishment?" Kim Tae walked to the speaking place in the center. The room got quiet. All the aliens expected him to beg. They thought he would ask for another chance or get angry and make threats. Humans always fought back when they were cornered. But Kim Tae just nodded his head slowly. "We understand what you have decided," he said in a calm voice. "Humanity will do what you want." The aliens looked at each other with confusion. Where was the fight? Where were the angry words? Kim Tae picked up his papers from the small table. "We came here in peace 20 years ago. We tried to help when you had problems. We shared our knowledge and our work. But if you think the galaxy will be better without humans, then we will leave." The hegemony leader, who looked like a big gray rock with glowing red spots, made a sound like grinding stone. "That is all? No arguments? No demands to think about it again?" "You have made your choice," Kim Tae said. He walked toward the big doors that led out of the meeting room. "We respect that choice. Good day." The other humans in the room followed him. Park Dabin stood up and walked out without looking at any of the aliens. Lee Hae-jin, who handled trade between humans and aliens, also left her seat. She touched a small device on her wrist as she walked. The message she sent was very short. It went to every human colony, space station, and ship in the galaxy. Just 2 words. Protocol 7. Most of the aliens in the room did not notice Lee Hae-jin's quick action. They were too busy talking about what had just happened. "I expected more fight from them," said the Aquatic Federation speaker. His people lived underwater and wore special suits filled with blue liquid. "Humans usually argue about everything." The crystalline collective representative made a sound like wind chimes. "Perhaps they finally learned their place. They are just one small species. We are 46 great civilizations working together." But some aliens felt worried. The Milani observer, who looked like a 7-foot-tall oak tree with glowing yellow eyes, watched the humans leave. His people were peaceful and wise. They had lived for thousands of years and seen many things. "I think we may have made a mistake," he said quietly to his aide, a younger Milani with silver bark. "Humans do more than we realize." The aide rustled. His leaves, which was how his people showed confusion. But they are so young and simple. What could they do that we cannot do ourselves? The elder Milani did not answer. He had worked with humans for many years. He knew they were not as simple as they seemed. Humans had a way of solving problems that other species could not figure out. They saw connections between things that seemed separate, and they worked harder than almost any other species in the galaxy. Outside the meeting room, Kim Tae stopped at the communication center. He sent his own message to Earth and all human settlements. It was longer than Lee Hee-jin's message, but just as clear. The Galactic Council has voted to expel humanity. All human citizens should prepare for immediate withdrawal from Council space. We will leave peacefully and completely. No delays, no arguments, no exceptions. We are going home. The alien staff at the communication center read the messages. It went out. They seemed surprised by how calm it was. They expected threats or angry words. Instead, the humans were just packing up and leaving. Within hours, human ships began moving. Trading vessels changed course away from alien worlds. Research stations started shutting down their experiments. Military ships turned toward the edge of galaxy where humans had built their homes. The speed surprised everyone. It was like humans had been ready for this day. Later, the aliens would learn that Protocol 7 had been planned for years. Humans always prepared for the worst case. They had learned from their history on Earth that friends could become enemies very quickly. Kim Tae took one last look at the beautiful crystal city where the Galactic Council met. He had spent 10 years of his life here, trying to build friendship between humans and aliens. Now that work was over. "Sir," Park Dobbin said as they walked to their ship. "Are you sad about this?" Kim Tae thought for a moment. "No," he said finally. "Sad is when you lose something good. This is just the end of something that was never meant to last." Their ship lifted off from the alien world. In the cargo bay, they carried the last official records of human membership in the Galactic Council. Tomorrow, those records would be filed away on Earth. The great experiment of humans and aliens working together was over. But as their ship flew toward human space, Kim Tae smiled for the first time in months. The aliens thought they were getting rid of a problem. Soon they would learn what they had really done. They had cut themselves off from the one species that had been holding their civilization together. 6 months had passed since the humans left the Galactic Council. Vrextar, a high-ranking member of the hegemony, sat in his office looking at the morning reports. His people looked like living rocks with glowing red eyes, and they were very proud of being smart about money and trade. But something was wrong with the numbers on his screen. Human trading ships had stopped coming to hegemony space stations. At first, Vrextar thought the humans were just being angry and would come back soon. "After all, where else could they sell their goods, sir?" his assistant said, bringing him more papers. "The trade stations in Sector 7 are reporting big drops in business. Without human ships, many of the smaller alien traders have no way to move their cargo." Vrextar made a grinding sound, which was how his people showed annoyance. "The humans will come back when they get hungry. They need our crystals for their machines." But weeks passed and no human ships appeared. Worse, the trade routes that connected different parts of the galaxy were starting to have problems. Ships were getting lost. Cargo was arriving late or not at all. The smooth flow of goods between species was breaking down. On the far edge of Council space, Captain Oh Sung-woo was shutting down the last human medical station. He was a doctor and a soldier, and he had spent 5 years helping sick aliens on this small world. The planet was home to the Siltari, who looked like living crystals that grew in beautiful patterns. "Dr. Oh," said Zilthan, one of the Siltari leaders. His crystal body sparkled blue and green in the light. "Why must you leave? Our people need your help with the growing sickness." Oh Sung-woo packed the last of the human medical equipment into containers. The machines were advanced and could cure diseases that alien medicine could not handle. "The Council voted to remove humans from galaxy affairs. We are following their orders." "But the bacterial infections are coming back," Zilthan said with worry. His colors turned dark purple, showing fear. "For 5 years your people have kept the sickness away. Without your treatment, many of my people will die." "I am sorry," Oh Sung-woo said, and he really meant it. But we can only help species who want us here. The council made it clear that humans are not wanted. The Silthari leader watched helplessly as human workers loaded their equipment onto ships. The aliens had grown used to human doctors being around. The deadly bacteria that had killed thousands of Silthari for generations had become just a bad memory. Now the humans were leaving, and the old enemy was already returning. Dr. Choi Bo-ram was having similar problems in aquatic Federation space. She was an engineer who designed special equipment for aliens who lived underwater. The Federation aliens looked like giant squids with metal suits that helped them survive in different environments. Dr. Choi, the Federation commander, called her on the communication device. His voice sounded worried, even through the water-filled helmet he wore. Our deep mining operations are failing. The pressure suits you designed are breaking down and we do not know how to fix them. Choi Bo-ram was already on a ship heading back to human space. Commander, I sent you all the instruction manuals months ago. Your engineers should be able to handle basic repairs. We tried, the commander admitted. But your technology is more complex than we understood. The pressure systems work in ways our people cannot figure out. We need human technicians to help us. I am sorry, but Protocol 7 is clear, Dr. Choi said. Humans can no longer provide aid to council species. You will have to solve this problem yourselves. After she ended the call, Dr. Choi felt sad. She had worked with the Federation for 8 years. She had helped them build mining equipment that could work in the deepest parts of their ocean worlds. The aliens had been grateful for her help, but they had still voted to kick humans out of the council. All across the galaxy, similar scenes were happening. Human experts were packing up and leaving. They were not angry or mean about it. They followed their orders quietly and completely. But their departure left big holes in alien society that no one had expected. Commander Jang Ki-hyun led a fleet of human ships out of the inner galaxy systems. His job had been to keep peace between different alien species who did not like each other. For 10 years, human peacekeepers had stopped small arguments from becoming big wars. Sir, his second-in-command said, we are receiving emergency calls from the border between Hegemony and Federation space. Fighting has started again. Jang Ki-hyun looked at the messages on his screen. The Hegemony rock people and the Federation water people had been enemies for thousands of years. Only human diplomats had kept them from killing each other by helping them talk through their problems. Send a standard reply, he ordered. Inform them that human peacekeeping forces are no longer available to council species. The young officer looked shocked. Sir, people will die if this fighting continues. Yes, Jang Ki-hyun said sadly. They will. But the council decided they did not need human help anymore. We must respect their decision. As human ships continued, leaving council space, the aliens began to notice more problems. Communication networks that had worked perfectly for decades started having failures. These networks had been built with human technology and maintained by human technicians. Without proper care, the complex systems began breaking down. Power grids that supplied energy to entire planets started having blackouts. The aliens had their own technology, but the humans had quietly improved it over the years. They had made small changes and additions that made everything work better together. Now those improvements were failing, and alien engineers could not figure out why. Trade agreements between species started falling apart. The contracts had been written in human language because it was simple and clear. But more importantly, human lawyers and diplomats had helped negotiate deals that were fair to everyone. Without humans to explain the complicated parts, alien species began arguing about what the contracts really meant. Ambassador Yoon Min-ho had been in charge of economic cooperation between humans and aliens. His final report, which he had sent to every species in the council, was very detailed. It explained exactly how much humans did to keep the galactic economy working. The report sat unread in government offices across alien space. Most species thought it was just human whining about being kicked out. They did not understand that it was actually a warning about what would happen when humans left. The report explained that humans managed 17 major trade routes. They handled currency exchange between 47 different types of money. They provided translation services. For species who could not understand each other, they maintained the computer networks that tracked goods moving between star systems. Most importantly, they served as neutral mediators when species had disputes about business deals. Humans were trusted because they were new to galactic politics and had no old enemies or allies. Other species felt comfortable letting humans make decisions about fair trade. But now all of that was gone. Ships full of goods sat in space stations because no one knew how to process the paperwork. Alien species that had traded together for centuries could not agree on simple transactions. The galactic economy, which had grown more complex every year for 1,000 years, was suddenly falling apart. Li Hai-jin, who had been the human trade representative, received dozens of emergency calls from alien governments. They all asked the same questions. Could humans come back just to fix the trade problems? Could they send just a few experts to help with the most important issues? Her answer was always the same. Humanity is no longer available for consultation with Galactic Council members. The aliens had wanted humans to go away. Now they were learning what away really meant. 1 year had passed since the humans left, and Chancellor Vorthka was facing her worst nightmare. The proud Vorthak leader who had led the vote against humanity now stood in her dying fields, watching her people's crops turn black and rot. The Vorthak homeworld was a harsh place with volcanic soil and poisonous gases in the air. For hundreds of years, they had barely grown enough food to survive. Then the humans came with their agricultural expert, Shin Ye-rin. Shin Ye-rin had been a small, quiet woman who spent 10 years working with Vorthak farmers. She had studied their soil and created special hybrid crops that could grow in the toxic environment. She had taught them how to balance the acid levels and add the right nutrients. For the first time in their history, the Vorthak had plenty of food. But Shin Ye-rin was gone now, along with all her knowledge. The Vorthak scientists had tried to continue her work, but they did not really understand how the human crop system worked. The delicate balance she had created was breaking down. "Chancellor," her aide said nervously, "the food production reports from all 7 agricultural zones show the same thing. Crop failure is at 60% and getting worse." Chancellor Vorthka crushed a handful of diseased grain in her 4-fingered hand. "Send a message to the human government. Tell them we need Shin Ye-rin to come back and fix this problem." "I already tried," the aide admitted. "The humans say they are no longer available to help council species. They will not even talk to us." For the first time in 300 years, the Vorthak faced the possibility of famine. The species that had been so proud of throwing out the primitive humans now watched their children go hungry. Meanwhile, in a hidden observation post at the edge of galaxy space, engineer Ryu Jae-sung watched the chaos through long-range sensors. He had been the chief designer of the Great Trade Network, a system of space routes that connected all the major civilizations. "Sir," his assistant said, pointing at the display screen, "the Hegemony and Federation are shooting at each other. Again. 3 cargo ships destroyed in the last hour." Ryu Jae-sung nodded sadly. He had spent 15 years creating peaceful trade routes between species that hated each other. The trick had been to find paths through space that kept hostile aliens far apart while still allowing commerce to flow. But the routes required constant adjustment. Space was not empty. It was full of dangerous radiation storms, moving asteroid fields, and other hazards. Human computers calculated safe paths every day and sent updates to alien ships. Without those updates, the old enemies had to use the same dangerous routes, leading to fights and accidents. "How many species are involved in the fighting now?" Ryu Jae-sung asked. 12 different conflicts across 7 sectors, his assistant replied. "It is getting worse every day." The engineer pulled up a map of the galaxy on his screen. Red dots marked places where alien species were fighting. A year ago, the map had been mostly green, showing peaceful trade and cooperation. Now it looked like the galaxy was on fire. Systems analyst Bae Soo-jin was watching even worse problems from her monitoring station. She had been responsible for the Great Energy Grid, a network that shared power between different types of civilizations. The grid was incredibly complex because alien species used energy in completely different ways. The crystal-based Silthari needed high-frequency light energy. The plant-like Verdani required bioelectric current. The machine-based hegemony used nuclear power. Somehow, they all had to share the same energy network. Bei Su-jin had been the only person in the galaxy who truly understood how to balance all these different power needs. Her computers calculated energy flows between thousands of worlds every second, making sure everyone had the power they needed without overloading the system. The core worlds are reporting rolling blackouts, her deputy informed her. The Silthari crystal cities are going dark for hours at a time. The Verdani biospheres are losing life support. The grid cannot handle the load without your balancing. Protocols. Can the aliens fix it themselves? Bai Su-jin asked, though she already knew the answer. They are trying, but they do not understand how the different energy types interact. Every time they try to send more power to one species, it causes failures for two other species. The grid is becoming unstable. Bai Su-jin felt terrible watching the energy network collapse. She had worked for 12 years to build something that benefited everyone, but the aliens had voted to kick her people out of the galaxy. Now they were learning that some problems could only be solved by working together. Captain Kang Ji-won was leading the final evacuation of human citizens from Council space. Her ships moved carefully through areas where alien species were fighting, picking up the last human researchers, doctors, and engineers. Captain, her communications officer said, "We are receiving another distress call from the Aquatic Federation. They say their underwater cities are flooding because the atmospheric processors are failing." Kang Ji-won sighed. The atmospheric processors had been a joint project between humans and the Federation. Human engineers had designed the systems that kept the underwater cities safe from crushing water pressure. But the technology was so advanced that the Federation scientists had never really learned how it worked. "Send the standard response," she ordered. "Human technical assistance is no longer available to Council species." As her ships passed through Federation space, Kang Ji-won could see the damage on her sensors. 3 underwater cities had already been abandoned. Millions of Federation citizens were fleeing to higher levels as their homes filled with water. The proud aquatic species was losing their deepest settlements because they could not maintain human technology. The medical crisis was even worse than the technical failures. Dr. Nam Tai-jin monitored the situation from humanity's new medical center beyond Council space. He had been the head of the Galactic Disease Control Center, responsible for preventing plagues that could spread between different species. "The bacterial infection is spreading faster than we predicted," his assistant reported. "It started with the Silthari, but now it has jumped to 3 other crystal-based species. Without our inoculation program, they have no resistance." Dr. Nam had spent 20 years developing vaccines that could protect multiple alien species from the same diseases. It was incredibly difficult work because each species had different immune systems, but he had found ways to create treatments that worked for everyone. The aliens had copies of his vaccines, but they did not know how to make new ones when the bacteria mutated. Disease control required constant research and adaptation. The old, bacterial strains that humans had controlled for decades were returning in new forms that existing medicines could not stop. "How many infected?" Dr. Nam asked. "Over 200 million across 15 worlds," came the grim reply. "The mortality rate is approaching 30% in some areas." Back in Council space, emergency meetings were being held on every major world. The proud alien leaders who had voted to expel humanity now faced crises they could not solve. Food shortages, power failures, communication breakdowns, and spreading plagues threatened the stability of galactic civilization. The Milani observer, Elder Corinth, spoke at the emergency council session. His tree-like appearance and gentle voice commanded respect from the remaining member species. "We made a mistake," he said simply. "Humans were not just another member species. They were the connective tissue that held our alliance together." The Zephyrian representative fluffed his silver feathers in anger. "Nonsense, we are advanced civilizations. We do not need primitive humans to solve our problems." "Then solve them," Elder Corinth replied calmly. "Stop the plagues. Fix the energy grid. End the wars. Feed your people. If we are so advanced, why are we failing at everything the humans did quietly and efficiently?" The chamber fell silent. In 1 year, the Great Galactic Council had gone from being the rulers of a peaceful, prosperous civilization to barely maintaining control over a collapsing alliance. Perhaps, suggested the Aquatic Federation commander through his water-filled helmet, we could ask the humans to return. We could apologize and invite them back into the council. Elder Corinth's bark-like face showed what might have been a sad smile. I have tried to contact them many times. Their answer is always the same. They respect our decision and wish us well, but they have moved on to other projects. The aliens were learning a hard lesson. It was easy to vote someone out when you were angry. It was much harder to ask them to come back when you realized you needed them. But humans, it seemed, did not wait around for apologies. They had quietly walked away and built something new. The question was whether the proud alien species would swallow their pride before their civilization collapsed completely. 18 months after humanity's quiet departure, the galaxy was falling apart faster than anyone had imagined possible. What the council members had dismissed as humans throwing a tantrum was revealed to be something far more devastating: careful removal of everything that had kept galactic civilization working. Admiral Park Hyun-soo sat in his command center in the outer rim of human space, watching long-range sensor data from the council regions. His weathered face showed no satisfaction, only sadness at what he was seeing. 3 different wars were raging simultaneously, and the violence was spreading like wildfire. Admiral, his intelligence officer reported, the hegemony has declared war on both the Aquatic Federation and the Crystalline Collective. The Verdani plant people are fighting the Zephyrian bird species over water rights on 6 different worlds. Park Hyun-soo studied the tactical displays. For 2 centuries, the galaxy had enjoyed relative peace. Small conflicts had been common, but large wars had been prevented by careful diplomacy and economic cooperation. Now, without human mediators to resolve disputes before they escalated, ancient hatreds were exploding into open warfare. What about the neutral species, the ones that usually stay out of conflicts? Most have chosen sides or been forced into the fighting, the officer replied. Without the trade networks to keep their economies stable, they need military alliances to survive. The admiral remembered Ambassador Kim Tae's words from years ago. Peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the presence of systems that resolve conflict before it becomes violence. Those systems had all depended on human involvement, and now they were gone. Dr. Wanda Hai, formerly the Human Finance Minister for Galactic Affairs, was reviewing economic reports from her new office in human space. The numbers were worse than even she had predicted. The galactic economy was not just struggling, it was collapsing in ways that seemed impossible. The currency exchange systems have completely failed, her assistant informed her. Species are trying to trade directly with each other, but they cannot agree on exchange rates. The hegemony claims their crystal currency is worth 50 times more than Federation biocredits, but the Federation says it should be the opposite. Dr. Wan nodded grimly. Human banks had been processing 60% of all interspecies transactions for good reason. With 47 different types of money in use, calculating fair exchange rates required massive computer systems and constant market analysis. More importantly, it required a neutral party that both sides trusted. What about the trade routes themselves? She asked. Cargo is backing up at every major station. Ships are stranded because no one can process the paperwork for interspecies transport. Some systems have been waiting 4 months for simple supply deliveries. Dr. Wan pulled up a chart showing galactic trade volume over the past 18 months. The drop was shocking, a 90% reduction in interspecies commerce. Entire civilizations that had depended on trade to survive were facing economic collapse. Any species requesting bilateral trade agreements with us? She asked. 17 so far, her assistant replied. But they all want to remain in the council while also trading with humans. Our government's position is clear. They have to choose. Chief, Engineer Hwang Min-seok monitored the infrastructure failures from his new position in the Human Colonial Administration. The great space elevators, orbital stations, and planetary systems that had been marvels of galactic engineering were falling apart without proper maintenance. The Vorthak space elevator suffered catastrophic failure this morning, his deputy reported. The entire structure collapsed into their atmosphere. Millions of tons of debris crashed into populated areas. Huang Min-seok closed his eyes. He had personally designed the stress analysis systems for that elevator. The Vorthak had insisted they could maintain it themselves, but they had never understood the complex calculations required to keep such a massive structure stable. Casualties? He asked. Unknown, but likely in the hundreds of thousands. The Vorthak are requesting immediate human assistance to prevent similar failures on their other elevators. Standard response, Huang Min-seok said sadly. Human technical assistance is no longer available to Council species. It was not cruelty that made him refuse. Protocol 7 existed for a reason. If humans helped with one crisis, they would be expected to solve every crisis. The aliens had to learn to stand on their own, no matter how painful the lesson. The medical situation was becoming a full-scale catastrophe. Dr. Nam Tae-jin received hourly updates from monitoring stations that track disease outbreaks across the galaxy. What had started as isolated bacterial infections among the Silthari had evolved into multiple epidemics affecting dozens of species. The plague has mutated again, his research team informed him. It is now affecting carbon-based life forms, as well as silicon-based species. The Verdani plant people are experiencing massive die-offs, and it has spread to the Aquatic Federation's biodomes. Dr. Nam studied the genetic analysis of the new bacterial strain. This was exactly what he had warned about in his final report to the Council. Disease control required constant vigilance and adaptation. Bacteria evolved quickly, and new treatments had to be developed continuously. Can their medical systems handle it? He asked, though he knew the answer. No, sir. They are using treatments designed for the old bacterial strains. The new mutations are completely resistant. Without our research facilities and genetic laboratories, they cannot develop new vaccines fast enough. The doctor looked at the casualty estimates on his screen. Over 500 million sentient beings were now infected with various forms of the plague. The death rate was climbing toward 40% in some regions. It was the worst medical disaster in galactic history. Sir, his assistant said quietly. The Milani elder, Corinth, has sent another personal message requesting humanitarian aid. He says they are willing to formally apologize for the expulsion vote and offer full reparations. Dr. Nam considered the request carefully. The Milani had been the only species to abstain from voting against humanity. They were peaceful tree-like, beings who had always treated humans with respect. Draft a reply, he said finally. Tell Elder Corinth that humanity is willing to provide medical assistance to the Milani people specifically, but only if they formally withdraw from the Galactic Council and establish independent diplomatic relations with the human Commonwealth. It was the first crack in Protocol 7's absolute isolation. Humans were not heartless. They would help species that were willing to admit their mistakes and change their behavior. But the days of providing aid to ungrateful allies were over. The message sent shockwaves through the remaining Council species. Within hours, 3 more species announced their intention to withdraw from the Council and seek independent relations with humanity. The Triangular Compact, the Mollusk Collective, and the energy beings of Sector 9 all submitted formal requests for medical and technical assistance. Chancellor Vorthka of the Vorthak received the news in her emergency command center. Her homeworld was experiencing complete systems failure. No food, no power, no communication with their colonies. The space elevator disaster had been the final blow to their crumbling infrastructure. How many species have left the Council now? She asked her advisors. 11 have formally withdrawn, and 6 more have announced their intention to leave, came the grim reply. The Council now represents only 30 species, and most of those are considering their options. The Chancellor's 4 arms trembled with rage and fear. Send a message to the human Commonwealth. Offer them full membership restoration, complete autonomy in Council decisions, and compensation for all damages. Whatever they want. Her chief advisor hesitated. Chancellor, we already tried that approach. The humans replied that they appreciate our reconsideration but must respectfully decline. They said they have moved on to other projects. What other projects? The Chancellor demanded. Intelligence reports suggest they have formed a new alliance with species that either never joined the Council or have recently left it. They call it the Human Commonwealth, and it includes 31 different civilizations now. The Chancellor stared at the tactical display showing human space. What had once been a small region on the galaxy's edge was now a growing confederation that included some of the most strategically important systems. Worse, the species joining the Commonwealth were thriving, while Council members faced crisis after crisis. How is that possible? She asked. We are more advanced than those primitive species. Her advisor pulled up economic and development reports from Commonwealth space. According to our intelligence, the humans are sharing their most advanced technology freely with Commonwealth members. They are also providing the same medical, technical, and economic assistance they used to give us, but only to their new allies. The truth was becoming clear to the remaining Council members. Humans had never been the junior partners in galactic civilization. They had been the foundation that everything else was built upon. Their quiet competence and reliable assistance had allowed alien pride to flourish. But when that support was removed, the whole structure collapsed. The great irony was that humans were not seeking revenge. 3 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council, and the changes across the galaxy were so dramatic that historians would mark this period as the end of one era and the beginning of another. Chancellor Vorthka stood in what had once been the magnificent council chamber, but only 12 species remained seated around the vast circular hall. Half of those were preparing to leave as well. The great alliance that had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years was dying, and she was watching its final moments. The Silthari have officially withdrawn, her aide reported with a voice full of defeat. That leaves us with 11 members, and the Aquatic Federation has called for a vote to dissolve the council entirely. Vorthka looked around the nearly empty chamber. Where once 47 proud civilizations had debated the future of the galaxy, now only a handful of stubborn species remained. The Zephyrian bird people still believed they could maintain their superiority without human help. The Crystalline Collective insisted their technology was advanced enough to solve any problem, but even they were starting to doubt themselves. Any word from the Human Commonwealth? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Ambassador Kim Tae sent another polite decline to our invitation. The humans say they appreciate our reconsideration, but they have moved on to other projects. In human space, Ambassador Kim Tae sat in his new office on New Geneva, humanity's capital world in the Commonwealth territories. The planet was beautiful, with clean cities and green forests, but what made it special was its location at the center of a thriving alliance of 31 species. Sir, his assistant Park Dobbin said, bringing him the daily reports. 3 more species have requested membership in the Commonwealth. The Spiral Federation, the Gas Giant Collective, and the Nomad Fleets all submitted formal applications. Tae reviewed the applications carefully. The Commonwealth was very different from the old Galactic Council. Species that wanted to join had to prove they were willing to work together as equals. They had to contribute something valuable to the alliance, and they had to treat all member species with respect. What about our response to the latest council? Invitation? Park Dobbin asked. Kim Tae signed the formal reply with a steady hand. Same as always. We wish the council well, but humanity has committed itself to building the Commonwealth. We cannot serve 2 masters. The truth was that humans had no interest in returning to the old system. The Commonwealth was everything the Galactic Council should have been. A true partnership between equals rather than a hierarchy with humans doing all the work, while aliens took all the credit. Director Jung Hyo-sung managed the day-to-day operations of the Commonwealth from her headquarters in the diplomatic district. Her job was similar to what human administrators had done for the Council, but the working conditions were completely different. The Milani reports successful crop yields using our agricultural technology, she announced at the morning briefing. The Triangular Compact has completed their first deep space exploration using human navigation systems, and the former Federation colonies have fully integrated their underwater cities with our atmospheric processors. Every species in the Commonwealth was thriving. They had access to the same human expertise that had once been freely given to the Council, but now it was shared as part of a fair exchange. Species that contributed to the alliance received help in return. It was simple, and it worked. Any problems to report? Jung Hyo-sung asked. Minor trade disputes between the gas miners and the crystal growers, but nothing that cannot be resolved through standard mediation, her deputy replied. The nomad fleets are asking for help setting up permanent settlements on 3 worlds. We discovered last month. It was remarkable how peaceful the Commonwealth remained compared to the chaos in former council space. When species were treated as equal partners and given fair access to resources, there was little reason to fight. Captain Song Yu-jin commanded one of the exploration fleets that pushed beyond the galaxy's edge, searching for new worlds and new species to invite into the Commonwealth. Her ship had discovered 6 habitable planets in the past year alone, and unlike the old council system, the benefits were shared equally among all member species. Captain, her science officer reported, we are detecting artificial signals from the next star system, possibly another intelligent species. Song Yu-jin smiled. First contact with new species had become one of humanity's specialties. They had a gift for making other beings feel welcome and valued. Prepare the standard greeting package, full cultural exchange protocols, and make sure they understand that we come in peace and partnership, not conquest. This was how the Commonwealth grew, not through force or economic pressure, but by offering something valuable to species who wanted to be part of something better. Word was spreading across the galaxy that humans and their allies were building a civilization based on cooperation and mutual respect. Meanwhile, in the collapsing council territories, the situation continued to deteriorate. The Vorthak homeworld was experiencing its 3rd famine in 2 years. The hegemony had lost control of half their mining operations due to equipment failures. The Aquatic Federation's underwater cities were slowly flooding as their atmospheric systems broke down. Prime Minister Lee Jung-suk addressed the Commonwealth Assembly on the 3rd anniversary of humanity's expulsion from the Council. She was a small, elderly woman, but her voice carried the weight of history as she spoke to representatives from 31 different species. 3 years ago, the Galactic Council decided they no longer needed human assistance, she said calmly. They believed they could maintain their civilization without us. We respected their decision and wished them well. The assembly hall was filled with beings of every shape and size imaginable: crystalline entities, plant-like creatures, aquatic species in environmental suits, energy beings that glowed with inner light, and dozens of others. But they all listened, quietly as the human leader continued. We did not seek revenge against those who cast us out. We did not try to sabotage their efforts or prove them wrong. We simply chose to build something better with those who valued our partnership. The response was immediate and unanimous. A thunderous approval that rang out in 40 different languages and communication methods. The Commonwealth species had all experienced what it meant to be treated as equal partners rather than subordinates. Today, our alliance includes 31 species and continues to grow. We have established colonies on 47 new worlds. Our scientific research has led to breakthrough treatments for 17 major diseases. Our exploration fleets have made contact with 12 previously unknown civilizations. Elder Corinth of the Milani, now a proud Commonwealth member, spoke for the non-human species. His tree-like form had recovered from the diseases that had nearly killed his people, thanks to Commonwealth medical aid. The humans taught us that true strength comes not from dominance but from cooperation, he said in his gentle, rustling voice. They showed us that the most advanced civilizations are those that lift up others rather than putting them down. Kapko. In council space, the final collapse was beginning. The Zephyrian representative, one of the last holdouts, finally admitted defeat in an emergency broadcast to his people. We were wrong, he said, his silver feathers dulled with shame. We believed that being older and more technologically advanced made us superior to the humans. We thought they were lucky to be included in our alliance. We never realized that we were lucky to be included in theirs. The Zephyrian people voted to abandon their government and request admission to the Commonwealth. It was a humbling experience for a proud species, but pride had become a luxury they could no longer afford. The last official act of the Galactic Council was a formal apology to humanity and a request to dissolve the alliance with dignity. Only 7 species remained by then, and most of those had already submitted applications to join the Commonwealth. Ambassador Kim Tae received the final message from the Council with sadness rather than satisfaction. "Send our regrets," he told his staff. "We cannot accept the Council's surrender because there is nothing left to surrender. They can dissolve their alliance with honor and apply for Commonwealth membership like any other species." It was a fitting end to the great experiment in galactic governance. The Council had been built on the assumption that older, more advanced species should lead, and younger species should follow. It had worked for a while because humans had been willing to do the actual work of leadership while letting others take the credit. But when the aliens had decided they didn't need human help anymore, they had discovered a hard truth. Age and technology meant nothing without the wisdom to use them properly. Humans had never been the most advanced species in the galaxy, but they had been the most essential. The Commonwealth continued to grow and prosper. New species joined regularly, attracted by the promise of fair treatment and mutual cooperation. Scientific advances came faster when knowledge was shared freely. Exploration proceeded rapidly when the benefits were distributed equally. Conflicts were resolved quickly when all parties trusted the mediators. Most importantly, no single species dominated the others.